Oh, we're gonna talk about this right now. All right, bet. That's rolling.
We're
This is
hopping
rolling.
in.
All right, we're hopping right in. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome back to the Ayoo podcast. Today, June in Jersey. Y'all already know the vibes. I got another wild guest for you in the building. My boy needs no introduction. Dude, take a couple seconds, minutes. Let the people know who you are.
Well there. Thank you for the kind introduction. I can't keep a straight face.
It's all good, bro.
Well, my name is Matthew Filipek. I'm also known as Luis's best friend. Used to be.
Oh, no, not used to be, bro. We always, bro.
No.
We busy now.
No, we went to school together at William Patterson. So we have a great history.
Mm-hmm.
Found him. He didn't know much about audio at the time.
I've said it a million times before. I'll say it again.
So I went to school for sound engineering. And that's where I met Luis. He came into the program. And from there, we kind of just stayed friends. And up until now, here I am. So,
Dude,
I don't know.
this man, the most humblest person I know, bro. Crazy. As he was saying, yeah, dude, like we went to school together, William Patterson. Shout out Pioneers. Shout out our alma mater.
Pioneers.
Pioneers in the industry. Yo, I already know this podcast is gonna be lit, bro. We laughing so much in the beginning already. All right, dude. I guess we'll get started.
Yeah.
I guess we'll get started with
Let's do it.
tell me about where you're from.
So I reign from the hills of West Milford. So it's pretty white out there, I'll be honest. So it's like pretty rural, just a lot of trees, not much going on. But that's what was cool, going to Willie P. There's so much diversity compared to, where I'm from. So it was really cool to kind of get some perspectives and see different people and like cultures and new friends and whatnot. Because God, even our high school was like, we might add, it was 99% white, and we all kind of just did the same, shit, and I don't know.
But you you had actually we'll get there. We're gonna go through the process of your life. So you grew up in West Milford. Great, you already explained it before I could even ask the question. So tell me, at what age did you start getting into music?
Probably, in elementary school. I'd say 11. Yeah, 10, 11-ish. So what's that, 4th grade, 5th grade? Yeah. So, I think that's also, too, in, school, when, you join band or whatever. That was in our school because, West Milford had a pretty good music program, their marching band. I never did marching band, but they had a pretty good program, and, they were really adamant about that, about, starting very young and, almost forcing you to join in and and whatnot. So
I'm glad you didn't, because let me tell you what,
me too.
I'm not I'm not saying you missed out on anything, because I enjoyed, and my marching band experience saved my life, mostly the professors, if anything, or the teachers, but I feel like if you actually fell in love with your trombone,
Yo, we didn't have to mention that on this. No one needed to know.
No.
Yeah.
But you play. You're actually really musically talented in instruments. I mean,
but not.
Dude, you played trombone. Come on, you with Gary. You know what I mean? Playing
With Gary.
And listen, and if anybody can get through a what do you call a jury?
That's it. Yeah.
You gotta be at least decent, and especially getting through your, what was it? Our junior juries were the ones that were
or sophomore proficiency.
Sophomore proficiency. There you go.
Which I could definitely talk that sucked for me.
Yeah.
Because that was the, as you know, at Willie P, you have to play an instrument to be in the sound engineering program. So hence, if you have someone who's really good at audio and it's spend a lot of time doing that, but maybe they're not as good as someone else on their instrument, what they're not going to get into the sound engineering program because they can't play their instrument well. So that always bothered me, and it's for your sophomore proficiency, if you don't pass that, you don't get to continue in the program unless you pass it. So
it's nerve-wracking as shit, man.
Yeah. So it's why is this one moment gonna determine my success in audio and whatnot? And that's so much of too. I think my journey so far has been that, like, I wanted to quit band so many times. Like 8th grade, I wanted to quit. Going into high school, I wanted to quit, and like every year they were just like, "No, just stay in 1 year," blah blah blah. And then eventually, like, I got to, I think, 10th grade in high school, where they called it wind ensemble, and that's where like I met kind of like, I'd say, one of my like first mentors. Like, my teacher was great, and shout out Dr. Mac.
Dude, shout out Dr. Mac, bro.
He was the G. Yeah, so he,
he showed you like the everything, like with trombone and everything.
Not even trombone, just music more so, and like I think just like way of thinking and like kind of finding passion and like, gravitating towards that, like just thinking clearly and,
Word.
Yeah.
So we'll get to high school. We'll get to when you went to college and everything, because I think that's our best stories. Right,
that's
there.
the best. Yeah, I'm jumping around like.
No, it's all good, bro. It's
work.
perfect. It's perfect. So we were at like elementary school. So when you first started getting into music, so like, who were some of like your musical inspirations? Did you have anybody in your family who like played?
Not really. Just not in my like really known immediate family that I was around, but my mom's dad, so my grandpa, he was a musician, and it was really cool because he was just, this is in like the 60s basically, and he had like a portable tape recorder and would go to the studio, and I think he sold like 500 records or something, like vinyl, so like we have it and whatnot, and yeah, it's cool. Like, it obviously he didn't like become anything like crazy, but I think he wrote some songs for like sent songs to Elvis that like he wrote, but like, obviously like they don't take them and shit, like blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, definitely that, that aspect alone. But, like other than that, no, like.
So when did you start, what's the first instrument you started playing?
Piano. Or if you want to get technical, keyboard.
Keyboard, yeah.
Keyboard, oof.
Because I know that you're like, technically like talented and stuff, but yo, my phone's ringing.
We'll
let it ring.
No, I kind of like it. It's good.
But well, getting technical with it, you were actually really good at piano as well, like heading into college.
Yeah, but then it's like you get to college and it's like, oh, I suck, because then you see like Kaplan, or like any of the jazz, majors. Or
well, I mean,
whoever.
when you compare yourself to any other musicians, I mean, it's like,
right.
You see the wide like range of everything, and especially being a sound engineer as well. It's not like they force you to like get with your instrument after the sophomore proficiency, right?
Right. Exactly.
So let's kind of skip around to high school then. So you had this great mentor. What made you go to Willie P out of all the schools you could go to?
Right. Yeah. It's money, because like also spending like whatever, even like with, I stayed at home too. I didn't, do like room and board or whatnot, but spending like $50K a year, like going like $200,000, like whatever, like in debt, it's just, and then going for music is just a bad idea in my opinion. And my parents were pretty adamant about that too. So, that made a lot of sense to me. It's like, I don't want to be in debt terribly. So Willie P had a great program as well. Like, there's a lot of those tech schools, like even, in Florida or, wherever, and they're like shorter programs or whatnot. But like Willie P is like extensive. Like when you look around, like there's not many schools in the US that have like a 4-year program, like with, musician, and like all the different, like music theory, ear training, not just the audio aspect of it. So it's like where I think a lot of other places you would just kind of learn like, oh, hey, like this is what this is, like, oh, this is how, whatever, like this is how this works, blah, blah, blah. But like at Willie P, it's like we really went in depth and like figured out the inner workings of these things. And, I feel like it's just a more extensive knowledge, and, sitting in class with Randy doing our mathematics, like,
shout out Randy, bro, because that man's mind just works in a different way,
different level. Yeah.
And I feel like the people who worked at Willie P, especially when we were there, like this was the first time I was actually exposed to like genius on a level that's like in the sound engineering world, especially because I feel like, as a musician, like, we've had people come into coming to Willie P, thankfully, through like, I feel like Willie P always has like some type of hookup. And
right.
I remember, I think it was my freshman year. Do you remember this famous trumpeter guy coming in and doing a performance for us in Willie P?
Who was it?
I forget his name, but he did like a whole bunch of video games, and he was like an insane player. But I think somebody that I think we could both remember, Victor Wooten, came in and did a performance.
Right.
And then after, he just came into like, the lobby and was talking to everybody, you know? And that's crazy to like, some people would go to a Victor Wooten show and would wait outside just for like a chance to talk to him.
Right.
But meanwhile, he's in with it. I mean, because he knows like we're musicians and stuff. And I think, talking about like Randy, talking about like, how in depth we actually go in our audio engineering program, the first 2 years is really just like you're a musician first, right?
Right.
And was that a surprise to you when you first went into Willie P?
Yeah, like, you always wanted to get to like that kind of like junior, senior year level stuff. But I feel like a lot of it too, and even for myself, is just like, sacrificing up front for like, later gratification and whatnot. And that's why, like, again, kind of like sticking with it in like middle school, like band, like height, it's just like, whether it was me or my parents just being like, hey, just suck it up. Like, you like an aspect of this, but it was still kind of like the path forward, just maybe not the exact, like trail. Like you're heading in the right direction, but
Word.
Word.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of hop around here.
Let's do some hopping, dude.
Sound engineering specifically. I mean, I've heard that you were like got into sound engineering early, and I think that makes sense. Like because if your grandpa got into like making records and like even selling songs and stuff. So what was your earliest experience with sound engineering in general?
This is kind of funny. This is like 8th grade. So I don't know if you remember like early Macs had like I don't know, like, well, not early Mac, but like GarageBand. We would like go after school, and like me and like my friend, like we would just kind of like try to create a song there, but like some of it had like the pre-recorded loops and shit. So it's like, kind of just like drag and drop, like making like a song or like whatever. And, it's always trash. It's just like those like really bad beats and just like,
But when you're that age, it's fire.
Yeah, exactly. You're just like, yo, this is sick. Yeah. Cool loop. So like, I was like so interested in that, but like we did not have at the time, 8th grade. So it was like what, like 13, 14. So like, I don't know if I even had, or maybe I was just getting a computer and like I couldn't afford a Mac, whatever. So I had like my Windows, like, PC, and I downloaded, there was like the PC version for it. It's just like always worse type deal. So it was called the Loop Labs.
Oof.
Loop Labs, yeah.
Loop Labs. I don't know if I've ever heard of that.
No,
one.
you probably, I don't think it exists.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, so it was Loop Labs, and it was the same concept, just not as good. But like I can do it more extensively and like also be an introvert and, like just gotta do it like all night, like whatever, like have fun with it. And then it got to a point where I was like, I want to record like my own part. Like I like played something on piano or whatnot, and I was like, wait, no, I want this to be in there. So that's where there was like a record function in it. And like I got an interface and started doing that. And I was like, oh, like I kind of like recording, like that was kind of fun, like, and so it definitely started with production and like kind of, creating things at first. And then kind of from there, just like talking with friends at school or whatnot, like now it's probably high school. And, someone's like, oh, okay, like, can you like record me? I was like, oh shit. Like, I guess so. Yeah. Like, I guess I can record you. So I think like the first session he did, like we like tried to do it. It was like my best friend and like, this one guitarist from school. And like, we tried to like set it up and I just could not get it working, just like classic sound engineering. Like, oh fuck, nothing's working, bro. Like, like there's always issues. There'll always be problems. So we just kind of like jammed out and then just like, they went home. I was like, like I can't do this, So then I like figured it out like later that night, and whatever, like that was that. And then another time, so like a second friend asked, and she was like, "Oh, hey, like can you like record me for, it's like a video or something, like blah blah blah." So like great, did it, was all set up, everything worked, and I got paid in Oreos.
Damn.
First payment ever.
Your first payment ever was Oreos. Were they fire though? Like
they were, bro, they were so good. They were great Oreos. They might have been double stuffed too. So
double stuffed is the move too. Is the move.
Yeah.
As a chubby guy, man, like double stuff is the only way to go, bro. And the only way to go besides double stuffed, and this is just me personally, the golden Oreos.
Oh, okay.
I love those.
I thought
the vanilla. Why? Are you thinking triple stuffed? Or?
Well, yeah, they got mega stuffed.
They got mega stuffed. I don't know if I could go mega stuffed.
Mega's pretty intense.
Is it intense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if for me the mega stuff is just too much.
Oof.
I don't know, too much sugar maybe.
Yeah.
I was actually I can never be trusted. Besides Oreos, the the Keebler elves.
Oh yeah.
They have those vanilla like wafers and stuff.
Yes, I do.
I could go through a pack of those in like a sitting. When I was a kid, actually me and my sister would go through packs of those.
Dude, you know what? I used to go through sleeves every night of Oreo. So there's like the 3 sleeves. I would crush a sleeve a night. Oh, dude. And then my dad'd be like, "Listen, Matt, can't keep this up."
You have it with milk or anything?
Oh, of course. Of course.
I know some serial killers who have it with water.
All right, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not killing people out here, but like when I don't have milk and I'm desperate, I gotta use water.
But you won't dunk them in the water, right?
No, no.
Because that's definitely some real serial killer shit. I would have to end the podcast right here because that type. Nah, I can't do that.
Yeah, no. That's some weird stuff.
So talk to me. So then you're recording,
Oreos.
You got paid in Oreos.
Right.
So was that? Did you end up releasing that record that you recorded with her?
Yeah, like again at this time, you're in high school, so it's just like whatever like project she needed it for, like blah blah blah. It's great. Like there was really no like Spotify like put it out yet. Like it wasn't even that level.
And what mics were you using?
Just I think it was like a blue. I forget the orange one. Shit. Yeah, I don't know.
Nah, it's all good.
It was like $100.
You said blue, and I was already like, ugh.
Yeah. You're like,
although the newest blue mics, they're okay.
Yeah,
they're okay. They for podcasts.
have some good stuff.
Yeah, they have some good stuff now. Back then, that just that ball, you know what I mean?
Oh,
and then
yeah.
You stick it in there, and then you're just like, here you go, do your thing. It's just like, damn it. It's like, I don't know. It's a cliche, but yeah, dude.
Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of that, like the early steps of like recording and sound engineering and trial and error. And like, man, I almost too, like starting out, and I'm so glad this didn't happen, but I almost niched down in like the metal genre.
Oof.
By like accident.
Nothing against the metal genre.
Nothing.
But, I mean,
I love the metal genre, but I just know I didn't want to be tied to that and like only do that. Like there was so much more out there that like I wanted to do. But yeah, it got to a point where I was like, like really bad metal band, like first worked with just like a mess, like literal noise, like noise.
Yeah.
Like usually like people that aren't, metalheads will be like, oh, like, yeah, it just sounds like noise, but like there's something there. Mm-hmm. But this was actual.
Just noise.
Yeah, it was not good. And like editing it and like, it's just like a mess. Like you're spending hours, like you're probably paying yourself like 50 cents an hour. Even though it was like I was still learning and shit, it's like whatever. It's still time consuming and just not what you kind of wanted to see and like do. So, yeah.
So tell me about like the first times like you learned, sound engineering. And I feel like it would have been great to learn these lessons young. You know what I mean? Because,
Right.
I was learning those same lessons, like, when you said you had your first session and you guys you couldn't get anything to work, so you guys just jammed. Like that was my first session in college.
Right.
I was like, I don't know how anything worked. You guys would just play while I like high stress over here just trying to figure out this duality. You know what I mean? Or it wasn't even the duality.
Right.
It was the signal flow in control room B,
which is harder.
Yeah, because you have to
honestly.
patch everything and then like patch everything in the like main patch bay as well.
That's right.
So what were some of these first lessons that you learned that you could remember back and be like, oh shit, like I carry that with me today?
Yeah, it's weird because I'd say 90% of it wasn't audio. Most of it was psychology and just dealing with clients and like understanding like their needs, their wants, stuff to like the temperature in the room, to like, do we have food, water, like all the things you wouldn't think of, but just to like make them comfortable, because at the end of the day, it's like, this is a client service industry. And it's like, you know, even if there's someone better out there, like if you make the client more comfortable and they like you, and it's like, that's what matters more most of the time. So
yeah, no, for sure. I 100% agree with that, because, you know, vibes, I know the word vibes is thrown around so loosely.
It has
nowadays.
lost much, much value.
But the vibes in the studio, you know what I mean? It's like to have that vibe and have that energy, and like, you know, I'm trying to think of like different words, but like
maybe experience, you know, just like, I don't know, a moment in time to like make it special.
It's almost like, you know, the aligning of like the planets, you know, and it's hard because it's not gonna line up every time you're in the studio with a client, with a guest, but
That's
like
true.
when you could just focus as an engineer to focus, you know, recording and getting the best sound possible, and then the artist can just worry about, you know, giving their best performance while in the booth or whatever they're doing, you know. It's like that type of feeling is like, it's harder to get to, you know, especially, you know,
it is.
People think about like, you know, professionals, musicians who have been in the recording studio. They already know how it goes. They get in there, they're already comfortable, boom.
Right.
But when you're first learning to record, some people could get nervous. Some people have never been in the studio before. And honestly, at this point, like, we're probably like blind to how it is, because we walk into a different studio and we'll be like, okay, I get the vibe here. You know, I'll come here and I'll chill, you know? But other people might go in there and they're like, oh my God, like, look at all these mics, look at all this. Like, I'm uncomfortable. So,
well, on top of that though, like, to expand on that, it's like, you're there, especially in the recording phase, it's emotional. Like, there's times where like an artist could be like breaking down, you know, or like it's like a serious like song or like lyrics or something, and it's, you know, you need to hold it together and like, you know, be there and, you know, be alert and ready in that moment. So yeah.
So why don't we actually hop around? Because, you know, it's funny hearing you talk, man, and it's just great to kind of sit down and it's wild, the journey we've been on, both of us, you know. Let's go to college. Let's go to college, dude. Because
let's go.
We met each other our sophomore year.
That's right.
Together, right? Because I used to be music ed.
Yeah.
And left that shit.
Left it, but for better.
For better. No, for sure. I mean, like, I still definitely want to teach in the future, and I think I think my heart definitely belongs in teaching as a retirement job, for sure, 100%. And I don't know if it's going to be engineering necessarily, but it'll definitely be something within the music field. But our sophomore year, I feel like our program worked how it needed to.
It did.
You know?
It did.
And I remember our first class that we took together, right? Oh, actually, yeah, I forget what exactly. The first class was with Kersner, no?
Oh, might have been, yeah.
And then like it was like switching in and out with oh my God, why am I forgetting his name? Frank. Fuck yeah,
Frank.
That's my boy. Yo, shout out Frank if you're ever watching this, bro. I love Frank with all my heart too, man.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah.
And we learned how to actually cut tape.
That's right. And which most places, colleges, like, don't do.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, it's, I don't know, and there's still a practical use for it, I think, nowadays. Like, I can get into that later, but yeah. So
yeah, and I think learning how to cut tape and like doing the old school stuff actually kind of makes you, it opens your eyes, you know.
It does.
I feel like giving you basics and, like, you know, simple audio engineering, like learning, like in that sense, you know.
Yeah.
I think I kind of want to get to the story of when we first started cutting tapes, right? And it was in Frank's class, and you know, there were so many kids in that program in the beginning, right? And you remember how much? I think, I can't remember if it was like 16 kids or like,
it
was somewhere around
like
there.
16, 18.
Yeah, 16, 18 kids
started, and then we dropped.
Dwindled, man, dwindled. It was crazy how everybody dropped like flies, and it was either because, like, you know, the program was too hard, or like
Physics, math,
physics,
yeah, like
math.
whatever. Right.
It was hard as shit, man. I mean,
it was.
It took me an extra year to graduate after
Yeah,
you.
dude,
so
I
mean,
almost failed physics. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like there's, yeah, I don't, yeah.
It's a tough it's tough. So how was it going with like some of the experience you had in high school now going into college?
Yeah, definitely. Like first year of college, I hated. The craziest thing is I almost switched majors. Like I was so like awesome, like so confident about sound engineering and like this is what I wanted to do. And like freshman year, it was just like nothing what I expected and wanted it to be. And I think I took personal finance as well. And I was like, because I'm like big into finance as well. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And the teacher's like, yeah, like, jobs as like financial planners or like whatever. And like, obviously, like in the finance world, it's like you get a great salary like right off the start. It's not like sound engineering where like you build up and you like kind of create yourself and like it takes years. Like there was definitely that aspect in finance where, it's not as creative. Obviously, it's a little bit more black and white, but it was a little tempting in some ways of like, oh, wow, like I can be much more stable and like kind of all these problems I was having in my freshman year could just go away. But again, parents were just like, listen, stick with it.
It's good parents, man.
Good. Yeah. And it's like, to know that for your kid of like, know them well enough to be like, we know this is what he really wants and like just to fight through it and whatnot. And it's like, day by day, you just do it day by day, like the small steps. Like you see the macro, you see the giant monster, and it's like, I don't want to do this, but you just take one step every day and, the problems become small and then you can manage them because they're small and, you just work. And then it's like, oh, next thing I know, it's sophomore year and I'm with Luis, and everything's better. So it's like,
you're too kind, man. You're too kind, man. Speaking of, I think even before college, because you have some deep rooted history in like the studio.
Okay.
I
don't know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, I mean like nothing crazy. But you got some deep rooted history in what we've done here at the studio and the project that we're doing here. And what I mean by that is the guy who got this all together is the guy who I had this in my first podcast, Shane. And he opened up Glower and then found me and then found Aaron who runs Iron Audio, and you were actually an intern for Shane, right, and then became his assistant, right?
Right.
And this happened during high school?
High school, like
Bro,
sophomore year.
Tell me about the story, because I have no idea how that all happened, and it was crazy because coming into college, I mean like it was so dope because like even though like you were very confident in all our classes, like I could see your brain working at the same time, but like like you were like the guru to look at too. You know what I mean? Like I looked at you as the guru. I was like, man,
you're the guru
Matt
now,
does
though.
this shit, bro. Like
and
at this point in college, you were already his assistant, right?
Yeah.
Sweet. So tell me how it started at ARC, man.
So this was over in Butler, and I went there again because I was the youngest intern ever to like start there.
And this is at Architect Studios,
right,
in Butler.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think I was there. My dad was with me. Like I don't know if I could drive at time or like it was like permit. It was like that level. So yeah, I was in there and the owner George, like opens the door. I'm like in the lobby area, and he's like, all right, like you come in, like blah blah blah. So we go into like the control room there. And like that's where I see like the giant SSL console, like the 80 channel thing, and like the speakers, everything. And I was just like, whatever. I was a 16-year-old Matt was just like, whoa, like this is cool, And like kind of talk. George was very chill, like just like super on board with everything. Just kind of basically wanted to make sure I wasn't like a like a bum.
Yeah.
I guess.
Some hooligan.
Yeah, like some hooligan. So that was really it. And after that, it was pretty much like went in once a week to start, and
were you working, who were you working under then?
It was like Mike Ferretti at the time.
Word.
But I wasn't even doing much for him. I was just doing more intern, like just cleaning stuff, like helping around the studio, like breakdown sessions. I really didn't have much interaction with him. Whether it was Shane there, because Shane was more doing assistant stuff for him. And
oh, word. So Shane was an assistant.
Shane, yeah, he worked
okay.
with Mike,
Word.
like doing some stuff. So yeah, I was under there, but like obviously younger than them. And I remember one time though they had me in the studio, like I think burn CDs because CDs are obviously way out now, but
Yeah.
yeah, we were burning CDs, and I was in there by myself for the first time, and that was also like another reassuring moment for me, of just like kind of like when the studio door closes, and it's like quiet, and you're just like sitting in there, and it's just like a giant mixing console, and it's like this is what I want to do, like this is me, like I feel like this is myself, and I feel comfortable here, and it's like those moments really reassure you that like kind of you're on your right like journey, so yeah. And then just from there it's just like it became less cleaning and stuff and like more technical stuff and like helping out. And eventually like when Mike left, and Shane started, I was doing a lot more stuff as an intern, and then eventually became assistant for Shane. But,
So
yeah.
how did that happen then? Because I know when Mike left, they reached out to Shane and they were like, "Yo, Shane,
Right,
take the reins, right?"
take the reins.
And so when that happens, like, where's your mind at? Did you know you were gonna be an assistant, and how that conversation happened between like you and Shane?
Not really at the time. I just knew though that like I was persistent with it with interning. So other people just like kind of didn't keep it up. Like I came back like whether it was every summer or fall or like whatever, and like stayed a while and would like always go and just kind of kept it persistent. And it's like, oh well, Matt's here like all the time, like as an intern, like keeps whereas other people just like drop off. So I think that was a lot of like name of the game stuff of just like be persistent with it, and it's like good things happened out of that. So it's like the relationships get stronger too by doing that, and like you kind of can start to see like a path of like, okay, like Shane's gonna need someone, and like Nathaniel was started there too recently.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was nice, and we all like got along. So it's not like I was there and like just didn't get along with anyone. So I think that's part of it too. But
Yeah, it's wild because like we've had Nathaniel on the podcast twice, and seeing all this like it's weird for me too because it's like seeing the past and kind of enjoying it and seeing where we are now. It's dope. So why don't we hop back into college? So sophomore year, it was a lot of basics. It was a lot of like getting to know things, getting to know people.
Right.
As we're getting through the program, some people are dropping, some people are like, that's not for me.
Dropping, dude.
It was crazy. It was crazy. But I feel like we ended up, and I think the thing that ended up like, we were friends in the program, obviously.
Right.
But I think like the time that like got us to like, like really get to know each other and be like these great friends is when we actually ended up being like studio partners. Because at one point they had in the program, everybody had to be paired up. Right. And I think there was only one group that had like 3 people in a group.
Right.
But once we were paired up, it was crazy because listen, Matt's so freaking humble, bro. It's crazy because he knew his shit. You knew your shit like sophomore, junior year. Well, somewhat, you know what I mean? Like there were some things that we were all learning, right? But for the most part, like, and especially coming from me, bro, like I remember, bro, and I think like I said, bro, I say this all the time, but like I didn't know what an XLR was. I knew them as mic cables, So when I remember our first never forget, Dave Kersner was like doing the syllabus, right? The first class, whatever, right? Yeah. And he starts naming all these things, right? And like, people are talking and they're all excited. We're all sitting in our chairs, like young college kids, just like, ready to tackle anything, ready to tackle the world. And like, he's saying XLR, and that's the only thing I heard. And I stood up. I was fucked up in my head about it because I was just like, man, I don't know any of these terms. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna get to it. And I thought like XLR was like, like something crazy, right? Yeah. And then like, it's my cable, right? I was like, God damn. I was like, this is gonna be a long road.
Dude, that's like the basis of sound engineering. It's almost like in healthcare, like some of like the terminology, you're just like, what is that? Or like these acronyms, you're just like, it makes you want to run.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, it's just this,
Yeah.
So.
And going in when we first worked together, it was funny before when you were saying, sometimes it gets mad emotional in the studio and like have to deal with it. He knows exactly where I'm going with this, dude.
Yeah.
Funny enough, you helped me record like my first song ever, right?
That's
and
right.
I think that's like something that, like, you know, as both a musician and sound engineer, like, I have the most crazy utmost respect to you. And it's like, you know, you always remember your first, you know. You know, and Matt took that from me, Matt. No, but for real, all jokes aside,
Oh my god.
it was crazy. It was crazy. And I remember, like, you know, first getting in the studio with you, and I'm just like, dude, I have so much to learn from this kid, you know. And it really was, and seeing how your mind worked and how interested you were, like, I honestly think it really kept me motivated as well, because there were times in the sound engineering program, and it wasn't like, you know, I'm not bashing anybody who dropped, because it was hard as shit, man.
I think it really, the program, yeah, it's hard that it makes you really decide, is this for me? Is this not? Like, if you don't have that, you know, in you, like, there you go, like, drop out, like, find something better. And that's like what our advisor Kersner did. Like, he wasn't upset with people dropping out. He's like, oh, like, this is just isn't for you. And he would help them find their right path. And I think that's great, you know? So
Yeah, I think yeah, because even some people dropped the program and ended up, I haven't talked to them, like, since, like, a lot of people who dropped, but, like, they ended up still taking careers in sound engineering and, like, you know, doing other things that just didn't involve going through the program.
Right. There's a lot of that too,
which was mad interesting. But, you know, I feel like, at least for me personally, like, I've probably asked myself, like, probably every project we had to hand in, I'm like, is this for me? Can I get through this?
Yeah.
And you know, I think the worst thing was, like, you know, like I said, when we were making, like, you know, you mixed and engineered my first song ever,
right?
And my only song still, well, at least it's solo wise. But you know, I was going through such a traumatic event, you know, with going through a breakup and everything. And it's so funny how it all came together, because you know, like, I made the song, and then, you know, we had talked about it, and, you know, you're just such a fantastic person to talk to about, like, philosophy and just, like, you know, just heartbreak and just life in general. And
we had some good talks.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. And I'll never forget, you know, we're talking about we were in the studio, and I was telling you everything that was going on in my life, and you're kind of just playing the piano. You're playing these chords, and they're like these sad chords, bro. And I'm over here, like, pouring out my heart to him, and he's playing these chords, and we're in the studio, and I'm like, dude, like, this is crazy. And I was like, we should record. And he's like, yeah, I'd love to record you. And I think there was this embarrassing moment that I always love telling the story about, because we were working on the 16 track, or the 16 track, right? Or was that the
on the tape?
Yeah, like on the inside Studio A.
The 24 track?
The 24 track, yes.
Tape machine, yeah.
The tape. We were working on the tape machine. And in that moment, like, I was still going through this breakup thing, right? And dude, I'll never forget it. It was funny as hell. The day we were working on the project, like, I had gone through a breakup, and that day was International Boyfriend's Day, I think, right? Like, these stupid shit that we make up for social media, right? For, like, to post up your boyfriend or whatever, post up your relationship, show off, right? And that day, my, like, you know, ex had removed everything off, so she did the exact opposite, right?
Yeah, it was anti-boyfriend.
Yeah, it was anti-boyfriend day, right? Dude, I was going through, I call that time period within, like, 2 months of that breakup, like, crazy, Luis. You know, because I was just like, I was just out of it. I wasn't me. And that's over here, bro. And let me tell you, this tape machine, to get it working and get everything right, was complex, bro. I'm like, damn, I was like, sound engineers back in the day were in the trenches with this, bro. In the trenches. And, you know, he was Matt, you know, just as stressed as everybody else, taking the little screwdriver that we had and adjusting these tiny freaking screwdriver knobs, making sure everything's great. And here I am, and I looked on my Instagram, and like I saw what happened. I was just like, I started bawling, and I'll never forget. Like Matt's here, hands and knees behind the SSL. It's maybe like, just to describe it to the audience, like listening, it's maybe like 3 foot of space, maybe,
Yeah,
and like
tight.
it's tight, and you got to sit down. There's nowhere comfortable to sit on.
There's like
it's
heat
hot.
coming from the console.
Yeah, from the console.
Like you're sweating.
You know? Matt's like, you know, like Luis is a cool guy, but like, you know, I hope he really helps me with the project. And here I am, dude. As soon as I see this, I just look at Matt and I'm like, yo, I'm gonna need a sec.
You like leave. I'm just like, dude, I gotta finish this project. Like we don't have enough time,
Bro,
like,
hilarious.
I don't know what this kid's doing.
Dude, I went directly into the practice room that's like
Oh yeah,
that's like right behind the phone in Willie P, right? That first one to the left. I went in there and I cried my eyes out. Just cried. I was crying. I was like so like just messed up in my head. And I composed myself. But you know when someone just cries.
Yeah.
You know, these giant tears in their face, you know. I'm red. I'm like, you know, I'm distraught. I'm sweaty, you know.
Yeah, like you really can't hide it well. It's so bad.
And I'm an ugly crier, man. Like I'm an ugly crier, man. Like I just turned into a disgusting pit of just like sadness. And
Nice.
I walked back into the studio. Matt's still there doing this thing. And I was just like, yo, my bad, bro. And Matt's like, no, it's okay. I got it.
Yeah, dude.
You take your time, too.
I was just not in, like, I had no clue what was going on.
What a shitty partner I was in the beginning, at least, you know. But
it's all good.
yo, but like, you know, like Matt helped me through like so many things, man. You're such a like you know, to be honest, like such a pivotal, like, you know, person in my life, in this part of my life. And honestly, like probably one of the only people who really actually helped me like get through the program. 'Cause I'm not gonna lie, like I think for the most part in the beginning I really got away with doing the bare minimum, even though I tried my best.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Because it always felt like I was playing catch up in the program, right? It always felt like I was playing catch up,
Right.
you know.
It's a tough feeling to, like you overcome.
Yeah, and when most people are like, you know, experimenting, you know, and like doing cool shit, I'm over here still trying to figure out, like, you know, like
Get the
signal
assignment
flow.
and right.
Like
Get
signal flow
sound.
and writing shit. And yeah, dude, I just, you know, thank you, dude. Like it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. How everything like happened and how it came to be, and then learning and being able to talk about, like, you know, mic shit when I was first discovering it,
Right.
because, you know, Willie P had such a great mic selection there.
Yeah.
Dude. Insane. And I think it's not until you leave where you realize, oh shit,
That's
I should have
right.
just been playing with mics every single day.
Yeah.
You know, and I look back at it now.
Playing with mics and like the just interactions with people, like even just us, like the relationships go such a, like, look at you now, like Shane is there, you're right there, like the relationships just stand, like even, you know, with Dave, like I'm so close with, you know, our advisor, like I think that's such like the win for college, that it really is the win, because when you don't go to college, yes, you can still do that, and like I'm pretty motivated, but like you need to be like hyper motivated to like really get to those steps and do those things, and like not a lot of people have that. So it definitely like helped me personally too, to like just have a relationship with you and like learn and grow, and like, you know, whether it's like recording a song or like whatever, like it goes so long, so far, you know, into like what the future could be, you know. So
I think it's interesting because when I was going through, you know, still figuring this shit out, you know, and trying to become a better engineer, you were kind of on a different journey of like, you know, you're like, I mean, like it's how it is, man. Like, you know, you were like already getting into like, you know, booking sessions and recording these bands and really getting into mixing. And, you know, it's something that I'll never forget because I think in this part of your journey for me, I was looking at you and I'm like, damn, like this man always has his laptop. You know, this man always has his always has his headphones on. Is always working on some music, and it was dope because you're always like, oh, yo, listen to this, and you're like, oh, how do you think this changes, like, you know, within this, or tell me about the idea you have with this mix, and so when did it get like serious for you? Like, what was your first big project that you worked on that where you're like, oh my god, like, you know, I'm officially a sound engineer now?
I think honestly with I can't say one moment, but with that rap collective I like started working with, they were
Right.
called Lowland, and like we did a first session together, and I was like, oh, like yeah, like these guys are pretty good and whatnot, and they were consistent with just like that's kind of like what's cool about like rap hip hop is like at least in those sessions in the studio, like they're just consistent. Like there's always stuff coming, like always a lot of creativity, like a lot of other genres say like more hard rock or rock, like it takes a while to kind of create build songs and like arrangements. Like rap you can kind of turn out quick, and
Yeah.
like make a quick beat, like get it going, and just start. So it became pretty serious with that because like that was also like consistent money, learning every day. Like yeah, it's just like you're recording a vocal, but like from a mixing standpoint, you're doing a lot. And like I was working on a lot of mixes at that time, so it's like really at that moment, it's just like the more you do it, obviously the better you become. So at around that era, there was just it might have been like 10 different rappers, and obviously all different styles and stuff, but like in a way it's all the same, and you can kind of learn and grow from it, collectively. So yeah.
Yeah, dude. And I think it's sick. So, do you remember like your first session that you had like all big band like mic'd up, or did you go through that? Because I know you had experience, like doing that in Architect and taking mics down and setting up
Oh
sessions
yeah, like
there.
the bigger.
But like,
Yeah.
when was your big first session, and how did that run for you?
Yeah, definitely a little crazy, for sure. And like it was out of, like parents' house. So it's like the acoustics just aren't, like nothing's, it's more just like, hey, let's get sound. Like, we'll get the best we can. It was interesting too, because you have to deal with multiple people. So it's like, it's almost like having like 5 patients at a time, like you have to attend to everyone's needs. So like when you first start out, it's like maybe you're just doing with one person, and like that's easy. But when you're in like a band session, or it's a lot of people, like that's a lot of people's needs you need to adhere to and whatnot, and understand. And like you almost have to, everyone has issues too with like their setup, and like how like, oh, like I'm not getting sound through like my bass, but like the drummer's not, and you have to like prioritize everything. So it was such a great learning moment for like how to prioritize tasks, and like just really like learn on the spot. Like so much of it's learn on the spot, but I feel like as long as you keep like the cool, calm, collected, exterior, it's like everything will work out. And like it's just again going back to vibe and keeping it straight, keeping it cool.
So, what were some of the biggest things you learned from college and doing those sessions?
Yeah, I'd say that's a good question. I'd say the biggest thing would be getting like the biggest thing would be getting the micro stuff set up, like all of the basics, getting like the signal flow, making sure all your bases are covered. So like you can kind of, everyone's like attended to, like there's like almost like 2 trains of thought. So like make sure everyone's good. And then once like that's established, move on to like the creative aspect of like really dialing in like what you want, and learning what, like having the vision in your head first and then applying it. Because I feel like for a lot of young engineers and like starting out, it's more so just getting the sound. It's like, oh my God, we got the recording. It's fine. Like, whew, like we'll try to fix it and like blah, blah, blah. But it's like a good sound engineer and and like people you hire that are like doing the big records and stuff, like they have the vision in their head first and then they make it happen. So it's definitely a lot of that when you're first starting out, and Willie P was great for that. Like it lets you, it has safety net, but Willie P really helped me understand, have the vision in your head first, like know where you want this to be and then achieve it. Don't just like start doing things and be like, oh, like great, now I'm here, I'm stuck with this, Like I can't turn this into what I wanted. So it's having a mental vision before you even go into the session of what, you kind of want this to be and whatnot, and reading, adapting to that, reading the room of, and the music of, the vibe of how everything's going to be. And yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think it totally makes sense.
It's a little, yeah.
Because it's hard too. Because I mean, I think that's something that I think even like with me as like mixing,
Yeah.
I still struggle with that. Having the whole vision, because there's a certain level of like maturity that kind of comes with being in a sessions, learning everything like moment to moment, being there, and like after you're not worried about things going wrong, or like not having to worry about like certain quality issues, your mind now goes into a different place of like creativity, and like it speaks and with the record, because as sound engineers, we're the secret backbone of all the music that comes out.
Crazy.
And we'll never. I don't really care about like the stardom of like mixing engineers, and it's funny because we kind of have that in our own way. Like, and I think our celebrity moments when we get them with other mixing engineers is probably like AES.
Right.
When we go there and we get to see like all these different people, like I don't know, like Greg Wells. I know there's like you get to meet like the people who are like Kanye's producers, or
right,
or Kid Cudi's like mixing engineer, and they talk about like how they use auto-tune and like how they use it differently though. Knowing what your tools can, not worrying if your tools will function. It just upgrades like everything. And I think funny enough, I don't know if I could admit that I'm still at that level, right? I still think I have difficulties when it comes to mixing and making sure everything works, but kind of learning.
I do.
Yeah.
It's like, it takes years.
Yeah.
Like decades.
It's tough. And sometimes it's simple things too. Like for example, the podcast, we used to have a different camera, right? We just upgraded our camera in the beginning of this June in Jersey project. And every podcast I would do, we had the old camera. It was an A6400, a Sony, and it would always overheat. And it would overheat around like depending on like, there was a lot of things that I had to learn about it. Just like how in sound engineering, like there's a lot of things you got to learn about, like signal flow. If something messes up, like how many problems can there be if one thing messes up, right? And it's like sometimes it's like you turn off the console. It's as simple as turning off the console and turning it back on. But then sometimes it's something that's in the line that's broken, and like you have to go through all these different steps, and it's like fuck, and it's even worse if you have a session going on during the time.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? The pressure, like that, those feelings in college, like like that's such like where you really shine through, because you learn like maybe freshman, sophomore year, right? You start with that stuff, and then as you get older, it's like you don't worry about that as much because you're
and getting grown. And it's wild because like I struggled with that so much in college, like being nervous, I remember we had I think it was the jazz dialogue day, right?
Yeah.
And that's when we would get to work with like, it was just nonstop recording jazz artists, right?
Yeah.
Coming into the studio recording, and you sign up for your slot, to run your session.
Right.
And I'll never forget, in my session there was I forget who I had, but he was like everybody was talking about like this one hard ass, right? In the jazz program.
Yeah.
I don't forget his name or whatever. But there was this one professor who like everybody was like, yo,
I remember
he's gonna treat you like trash. You know what I mean? Don't mess up. And I'll never forget, yo. There's certain things as a sound engineer you learn the tricks of the trade. One thing that's like my favorite thing that I learned is like the fake knob moving, it's like it's like yo my drums are kind of low, can you turn them up? And you'll be like, yo, yeah, give me 1 second, and you like make a lot of movement, like, how was that? And they'll be like, oh, dude, sounds so much better, It's great. Though with the less professional musicians you could do that, right? But with the real ones, it's like, they could tell.
That's what we'll get into it, because like mastering, what I'm doing now is like, it's so much of that, which is crazy.
Dude, I can't wait. But like, in that session, he said, he's like, oh, can you I can't hear the string bass.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, bet. And dude, I couldn't figure it out for the life of me.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't come up. I was moving the fader, and I was like, well, I have this plugged in. And as you get more experience sound engineering, you get to you get to see which problems are most likely, right?
Yeah.
When you're young starting out,
Right.
like your mind's in a million places.
Right.
Dave was right behind me. I'll never forget.
Oh, and our professor was just, he wasn't in every one, too. That's awful.
He was just watching my mind work, right? And he's literally looking at me, dude. And dude, it's the most embarrassing thing because I'm looking everywhere and I'm looking at him like every 3 steps I take, I look at him to be like hot or cold.
You're like holding the knob, looking at him, and then he's just like no, and you're just like moving your hand down, like until he like nods.
That's like exactly what happened, and I'll never forget. Like I really couldn't figure it out, and the guy was getting like pressed, and I was just like damn. And then David literally looks at me, and he's like, "The track's muted. The mute button is on." I was like,
dude, that is the like epitome of sound engineering, though. It's like, why am I not getting sound? Oh, the track isn't in record mode. Or it's like you didn't hit like the one simple button. Because like our minds just always go to the complex problem.
Yeah.
It's like, it can't be that. And probably most of the time I'd say it is. It's like something so simple. Just like, come on. But to your point though, like when it's like you have like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people in the room and the pressure is on you. And it's like, no, like, there's a reason why, like, yeah, like the mute, like, I would have done the same thing. Like, you're looking for like something else,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's tough. And, I think this conversation all kind of dove from knowing your tools and stuff. And what I was saying about with the camera, I would be worried so much about the camera.
yeah,
That I would be like with the guest and I'd keep looking at the camera and seeing if the light was on and if it kept going and I couldn't really give myself fully during these interviews and it's hard because I don't want to distract them or anything either and sometimes I'm still getting used to it because this camera will not die. I mean, knock on fucking everything, bro.
I'm just waiting for it to like fall off as you.
But like sometimes I'll still look at the camera and be like, "Oh, is it recording? Oh, okay." All right. And I'm back into it.
Right.
But when you have to worry less and you're not thinking about those things, you the full creativity of your mind and everything you do can really blossom.
Yes,
for sure.
Yeah.
So, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Talk to me about after college because I think that shit is wild. It's wild. And
it is a little wild.
Before we get into this, I will say this. Seeing Matt in college, there are certain things where, you see someone doing something and it's like, when you wake up and you just want to do what you do, I think that's how like you're meant for it, And, seeing you was like, every time I saw you, you wanted to mix, you wanted to do this shit. And like, I saw myself and I was like, damn, like, it was hard for me because I was like, you see everybody in class and all their different like aspirations and goals. Everybody wants to be a great mixer. Everybody wants to be an amazing engineer. And I just didn't think it was for me, like at the time. And I think there's a place for sound engineering at some point in my life, but it's just not right now. But I think waking up and knowing what you want to do is great. And I guess my question leading up before we start getting into like after college, when did it hit for you at a young age, or did it because I feel like it kind of caught more momentum as you kind of got through college, and that momentum kind of spearheaded you into like what we're going into now. So
yeah,
what did you think before you were leaving college, like what you were going to do? Like, were you gonna open up your own studio? Were you gonna be a mixing engineer somewhere? Were you gonna leave Jersey and go to Cali? Like what was going through your mind senior year? About to graduate.
Yeah, senior year was freelance. Like, there's not many, if you want to do, like the recording, mixing, mastering stuff of, like cool records and stuff and bands and artists, like there's not many places where you go to just, do those things and they hire you right at the spot. It doesn't happen much. Like, so, even architect and starting younger, like even at that place, like, yeah, it was cool. But like, for myself, I didn't have like a lot of bands coming through there or whatnot, like that I was doing myself. So I knew I had also our one class with, what's his face?
Angelo?
Angelo. Yeah.
Love
Sorry to throw this in quick.
No, it's all good.
No,
please.
but it is part of like what kind of plan was, because so we took this class called audio post, which is like audio for movies, or audio for video basically, and learned so much and like really fell in love with that too. And this was like a last minute thing, which was crazy. So, it's like to be working like all these years, like just working with bands and like whatnot, like really loving that. And then in just the semester of like senior year being like, whoa, like this is cool and like way different.
It was life-changing.
It is. It was very life-changing. So like, and I talked to Dave too, and he's like, a lot of people do multiple things after college. So that was definitely in my thought, of like, all right, I'll be, I could do some work with Angelo because he was asking me to intern at first, and start. So yeah, so it's like do that, like record bands and like do assistant work at Architect. So it's like, between all that, like you can I was like, all right, like I feel comfortable with that now. Like I didn't want to take on something else after college, like looking for something bigger, better, like whatever. It's like I'm happy here, and like not that like happy being I want to say satisfied, but because like obviously like I always want to grow and do more, and I felt though I could do that with freelance and stuff. So it's not like I just felt like happy and comfortable and like that's it, like this is like the most it'll ever be. It was, oh, I like these people, I like this environment, everyone, and I can grow this, like there's room to grow. And that was what was big for me. So that was like the plan, to start at least. So I did that and then I did that for like a year, I think, after college.
And I actually caught you at the tail end, right? At Angelo's.
You did.
That
yeah,
was
this man came through.
It was always great seeing Matt, bro. And it's wild because you leaving Angelo's gave me the opportunity to kind of step in there too.
Yeah.
And like work with him and it it's funny. There's so many things I want to talk about, dude. We're gonna have to have another podcast at some point for sure, 100%. Yeah. There's so many things that you could do after college with sound engineering. Whether it's like I even know like even some examples. I know some people who went on tour, with other people because there's a live aspect of sound engineering. That's a tough life, man. Like, and you always hear anybody who's a sound engineer who says they got on tour. Like, it's tough. You're just on a bus, you're doing your thing. You're going place to place, making sure everything works, and then boom.
Right. Was not my life I wanted, too. It's like, you kind of know that when you get into audio. It's like, this is for me or not for me type deal. So.
Yeah, and then there was with Angelo, we were learning the editing aspect. And
and having the video aspect to it of like, it just like opened up like all of our minds type deal.
Yeah.
And shout out too. I'll give you a shout out here because you in class were like the guy in Angelo's class.
Man, I appreciate it, dude.
For understanding movies, like emotions, like the intent of what the audio was doing. So it's like we'd watch a movie and our professor would be like, all right, like what happened in this scene and like with the audio and stuff. And like, pretty much me and the rest of the class were just like audio, like we knew. And then like our professor's like, no, but like what's happening in the film? And like none of us knew except this man. And Luis, like 99% of the time, like every single question about it would always hop into it and just like get it right of like, oh, like this is what's happening in the scene, like emotionally. And then like the rest of the class, we would tie in the audio. And like we literally flip-flopped our learning. Like I learned everything you were great at, and you learned everything that like the rest of the class and I were, good at too. So
yeah, I mean, like,
so cool.
It's great because like I said, like I always felt like I was playing catch up with you guys,
right. And then this moment
when it and let me tell you, our 16 turned into like a 6.
Yeah.
And at that point, like when it was a 6 of us, it was like, yo, like. Y'all better make it, we in the end game, fellas, and we get into this class and it's the first time that like, and thank you too, dude, because it was the first time ever that like I felt like, oh, like I could contribute a lot,
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm not even like a movie person. Like I don't watch a lot of movies, but like I just love like I knew I was meant to be there just because like I loved it so much. Like I love sound engineering. I love the aspect of it. And this was the first time like I feel like that class is what I always wanted to get into, regardless. Because I remember our freshman year, or not our freshman year, well, our first actual sound engineering classes, and like I would talk to Dave, and I'd be like, you know, like I how do you emotionally make that voice hit your ears like that? Because and I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't know any of the terminology, and you know, like I sounded like an idiot, you know, probably because you know I'm like yeah, like how do you make the voice sound real,
right?
And like you know, like. In it, like we kind of get like what we're talking about when you're saying that, but like you know when you're just like you know a kid and you don't know how to like you know necessarily like really explain what you're trying to say, it's like fuck.
Right.
Yeah, that class was crazy. It was life changing, and you know when we saw the movie Soccer Punch, man, like how much did we like dive into that? You know? And then this is like halfway through the class, COVID. You know, COVID hits,
and then COVID,
and then we have to go take all these classes during Zoom.
Oh,
you know?
I know,
wild, but like you know, crazy because we're doing all these classes during Zoom. We have to watch these movies at home now,
right?
Bro, you came in clutch for that class, dude.
Oh, with the
coming clutch, bro.
Yeah,
Matt, yo, let me tell you something. Matt has this like. This obsession over headphones, dude. Like, and I don't know where it came from, but it came like I guess he always had it, but like randomly, like during like senior year, like this man brought his preamp for his headphones, and he was just like, "Yo, you don't understand, bro. Like these newest headphones, they're wild." And I'd be like, "Yo, I believe you." And you know what? I believe the shit out of you, like especially at that last class, man. Like I was like, "Oh my god," because what we were using the what program was that? It was like the 3D sound program.
Waves NX.
Waves NX, yes. Sorry, 40, whatever the hell. 3D sound.
Right. It just allowed us to do surround sound, emulate it. On headphones, and that it worked, man. It worked. It's crazy. Like we all did our senior projects on it, which was awesome. Like you know, it like was obviously it's not the same, but like it worked though. It was a workaround that we could like. I feel like functionally do it where it was like the same layout, you know?
Yeah.
So,
but it was great. It was great. So, man, this is great. Just kind of going back to the memories. Matt, let's get to the bread and butter of this podcast, man, because you have a crazy story after high school, after college.
Yeah.
You know, so like you said, man, everybody's after graduation, man, everybody's doing different things. Like it's crazy for sound engineers, like because there's so many things that you could go into. You could go into the corporate world and make like big bucks, like just miking corporate meetings and editing their audio to do that. I mean, you could go into mixing. You could be an assistant engineer. You could be a roadie, like we talked about.
Forensics, forensic audio. You know what I mean? Like there's so many
there's so many opportunities everywhere.
Yeah,
but it's like. Yeah. You come out of college, and let me tell you what, I'm gonna tell you what, bro. Like, if this is gonna happen to anybody, bro, I am so happy. I'm so happy that it happened to you, man. Because it was just like when I heard it the first time, I was like, you know what? Makes sense, bro. Makes sense. 'Cause this man grinded, bro. This man was grinding, man, and it's like it's insane. So, with that introduction,
yeah. So I was, as we said before, I was doing. I was recording bands out of that place, Architect. So at that time I was doing that and, you know, doing Angelo's thing and blah, 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 a bunch of stuff at the time. So I'm in a session and it was Jerry at the Beach, actually.
Word.
I'm working with them. Yeah. Which was great. It was awesome. Like great music, having a great time. And, you know, they work so fast too. And like, it's just like so in the zone. Like, you know, like really don't check your phone like during breaks and stuff. Like, you didn't have many breaks, but we kind of took like, you know, whatever, like 15, 20-minute lunch break. And I check my phone and I see a voicemail from our advisor, from Mr. Kersner. I should play it, actually.
Do you want to?
I think I have it.
Dude, if we could have, bro, if you, dude.
It's kind of crazy. Because I was like, this is just like, yeah, I'm just not in the mental space for, you know what I mean? Like I'm in record mode. I'm like recording a band right now. Yeah, I think I have it like right here.
Dude, you could just put it up to the mic and we'll kind of just listen to it, man.
I got you.
This is a first for the podcast, bro. This is crazy. This is crazy. All right.
Dude, what if I just play something like completely like I just play like porn or something?
Either way, bro, I'm gonna be excited. You know me, man.
Bro, that'd be so funny. All right, yeah, so let's see.
Hey, Matt, Dave Kersner here. So what we have here is a chance of a lifetime. This would be an entry-level position at Sterling Sound. You would be Randy Merrill's assistant. You know, the guy who mastered Album of the Year this year. So you would, this is the kind of commitment that you're going to jump ship and you're going to become a mastering engineer at the highest level. It's that kind of opportunity. Call me back.
Call me back.
Dude.
And like, dude, I'm just standing there just like what? And yeah, I just lose my shit. And like, I'm friends, you know, with Josh and all, like it's super low key, which is great sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I just told him, I was like, dude, like you guys got to listen to this. Like, you know, if it was like a band I didn't know, it's like, obviously I'm gonna like compose myself, but like, I was like, I can't right now. Like, this is like crazy. So yeah, I played it for them. We're like, dude, like you got to call him back or whatnot. So called him back and yeah, dude, he just got into it. And so this guy, Randy Merrill, works at a place called Sterling Sound, which is a mastering house. So there's not many, but it's basically a place with a bunch of mastering engineers. But the cool thing about Sterling Sound though is they do the major records. Like they were around since the 60s and have done like so many major records. I forget the percentage of like every year, like on the billboards that like records they master, but like it's high. Like I might be over half.
Yeah.
You know, like it's up there with like, whoa, like a lot of the stuff out, like they do.
And you know, I'll pause you real quick, but please continue. Please continue. Keep your thought. For the people listening, getting a call like that, like getting this call, bro, is so freaking insane. Like this is like once in a lifetime type of opportunity, man.
Yeah, like this doesn't happen
at all.
Like
ever.
This is like a 0.01% of the time happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, all of like even listening in freelance, I listened to like this podcast, which is like a big freelance podcast for sound engineers and like building it and growing it. And that's all it was. Like, it wasn't about these opportunities because they don't happen anymore like that, you know? So like when this happened, I was like, it didn't feel real at all. It's like, what, you know? So yeah. So
so you're talking about they've produced like a major part of like all the records that come out like, you know, today.
Yeah. So like the first thing I did honestly was like I just looked up Randy Merrill because like I knew his name because he did the Ariana Grande stuff, like her albums. So I just like went on his page on Sterling Sound and I was like, oh my God, like, you know, like Harry Styles, like Taylor Swift, like Adele, like all just the major records. And like that's him too at Sterling. Like there's other engineers there, but it's like this specific guy at Sterling Sound is doing those records. So it was just such like a shock moment of just like, I don't know what to think right now. Like this is insane, you know? And just the fact that it just came up like so out of the blue, you know? So yeah, just like so many thoughts, you know, blah, 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 like finish the session up. Obviously like go home, like tell my parents and they're just like, what? You know,
that's
just
insane.
like,
I don't even know how I would react as a parent.
Yeah.
Like, that's wild, dude. It's wild.
Yeah. So, you know, Dave, I told Dave, I was like, listen, like, let me just like take a night. Like, is that okay? Like, can I just like have a night to like just go over this and blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, sure. Blah, blah, blah. So spend a night talking to my parents. And I was like, do it. You know, it's like this opportunity. Like I'm very comfortable where I was. Like I love my relationships and stuff. And like, again, man, it still kills me to like, even like to not be here. Like I love this place and I love everything you guys are doing. And like, I want to be more a part of it, you know, but it's like this opportunity is just like so ultra rare that if it was anything else, I probably wouldn't have taken it. Like if it was just like some random dude, you know, mastering like blah, 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 I wouldn't have taken it because like there wasn't anything there. Like this is just such like a take the, you know, the highway shortcut to like the top level of the game and like learn from like pro, like mentor, you know, level person.
Man, I mean like these are like some of the best in the world. Like, you know, like
like
at what they do, man. I mean,
yeah, like
it's wild. So
it's daunting still for me today. It's daunting watching them work, because you're just like, what? Like, my ears are going to be this good type deal, you know? It's like, you know.
So you take that night, you talk to your parents. Obviously, your parents are super supportive. Shout out to your mom and your dad. Your mom made me coffee once.
She did. Yeah, you came over. It was nice.
That was great.
Going on a nice little hike. Saw a bear.
That bear was scary as shit.
Yeah,
man.
dude.
Don't even play with me.
Scary bears.
This man, Matt, let me tell you, has always had my back to the point where I saw this bear and I was scared. And this man's like, yo, don't be scared. And he starts walking towards the bear, clapping his hands.
Throwing shit.
And it was the direction that we were hiking to.
Yeah, we need to go up there. Bro, that's the thing, bro. The city folk come to West Milford and they get like mauled. I'm like, I don't like that. It happens. It happens, dude. Like COVID, everyone's like, oh, we gotta go do stuff. So people going on like, you know, like Clinton Road where I live off of. It's like, oh man, these people are gonna get like, you know, live out here, and they got kids. I'm like, I just don't want to see this.
Oh, that's terrible.
Anyway.
Bears. Back to the once in a lifetime opportunity. So you take that night. What's that next conversation with Kersner like?
Yeah, I just say I'm 100% in. Like, let's do this. Obviously, thanked him a bunch. You know, like I wasn't sure like what the next step was. You know, blah blah blah. But you know, his interview process. So, which I got a funny story about. So basically does that, gives me his email address, you know, and got to set that up with Randy. And, just kind of like talking to him, scheduled the interview, you know, kind of got my resume all together and whatnot. And we're doing the interview and I'm like, I have like a candle lit. And like the one time, dude, the candle makes the thing, the fire alarm like go off, like smoke detector. And I'm just like, bro, like what are the chances? Like I'm talking to like Randy, like mind you, this guy, like I don't know how much time, like I just assume, you know, like at that level, like these guys, you know, when they go to places to talk or whatnot, it's like, oh, like, you know, you pay me like whatever, like $1,000 an hour, like something, like it's always, you know, like their time is so valuable. So I'm like, oh man, like I just don't want to like waste this guy's time, you know, like whatever. You know, just like so nervous, obviously.
And this interview was through
Zoom.
Okay,
because of
sweet.
Sorry, that's right.
Yeah.
Because I just like say that because
no, it's all good. That's why I'm here.
Right. That's right. Yeah, so I'm just like, oh, sorry, like I gotta fix, like I don't know why, like that, like happened, you know, and so yeah, like, I like stop that, and I keep talking to him like super low key, which is great.
What questions like was he asking? Like what were like the first kind of things he said?
Nothing about it was about kind of motivation, I'd say, and like why you want to be here type deal. It wasn't really like what you know type stuff. So it's like, which I thought was awesome, you know, keep it to like, oh, like I want to develop a person, you know, and like be a good vibe, and definitely a lot of that. Like it was a lot more personal questions of, you know, because you're going to be working with this person a lot. So, you know, want to make sure like we get along and whatnot. So that was a lot of the questions were directed towards those things. You know, the technical stuff will come later, but like, let's make sure you're cool. So, yeah.
Sick. So do you remember anything like specifically that he asked that kind of stuck with you?
Nothing really. Just like my interest in mastering, you know, like it was very low key and whatnot. And, you know, like ended on a great note, like smiling, laughing, like good stuff, like super appreciative, you know, interview ends, like email him after, like thanking him again. And I don't hear from him for like a week. And I'm like, shit.
So what's going through your mind now? Like,
yeah.
just, like,
Well, that's
worst?
when the thoughts start, you know, it's like almost like at a week, you're just like, oh man, like I didn't get it. Like, whatever, you're like, this is, you know, crazy opportunity still, blah blah blah. And then like I think another week goes by, like almost 2 weeks, and I'm just like, what? Like I guess nothing, you know, blah blah blah. And around 2 weeks I get an email from the president of Sterling Sound, and he's like, hi Matthew, like just want to say, I heard Randy talk to me and said he had a very positive conversation with you and would love to have you on board. And below is like your offer letter. And I was like, and dude, I just like, no one was home. I think I just screamed. I don't know what I did, dude. Just whatever. It's just like those like sport moments when like you like score a goal and you're just like, your body's just doing something and you're just like, I don't know what's going on. Yeah. So yeah, I was just like ecstatic. And the first person I call is Dave. I gotta call, our advisor. So I call him, and tell him everything. And, he was just so happy, was like super appreciative. I'm just like, I just can't even think right now. And it was great too, because probably for a lot of people don't know this, but like, in the music industry, it's like, it's a lot of like, you make it on your own and like develop, and, it's just like such an uphill battle. And like my offer letter was great because it was salaried with benefits and vacation. And it's like, whoa, like this is like legit, coming from like Sterling Sound. It was like, wow, like this is serious, like it's not anything like light or, like it was good. And I was like, this is like just so surreal, so they basically started getting me set up for home because I couldn't come in yet for like another month because of COVID. There's like protocols. I need to get like my extra shot, and stuff. So so like I'm from home working, watching this. So he has two assistants, or I'm the second assistant, but I was watching the main assistant, do her thing and learn from her. So I was home for a month doing that. And, it's like a lot, just like writing notes and, it was really hard at first.
So what was your so technically your first days were kind of over Zoom, or was your first day like in person?
No, Zoom.
So what was your first day on Zoom like?
It was kind of just like, hey, watch me, because and like, I understand now, because it's like, you get like, there's so much work there going on that it's like, just get the work done.
So like, you're a technical guy, what I mean? Like, you know your shit. And and at this point, like, I think you were set up perfectly, especially the way you set yourself up perfectly to kind of understand. So like that first day, like what exactly did you see? I mean, you don't have to give out industry secrets or whatever like that. I'm not looking for that, but I'm just interested in being like, what was going through your mind technically, because you understand it. Yeah.
Well, the craziest moment, like so crazy. And like, I'm trying to like hold it together too, like over Zoom. So, cause I see the screen share, and like, we have like a scheduling software. So first day I see the schedule for today, and she's like, all right, like these are the things we're going to do. And on this schedule is Paul McCartney and Taylor Swift. And I'm like what?
So cool.
Yeah. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, it's just like, I can't process like what, like at this level, like, what's happening. So so I was just like, oh my God, I'm just gonna shut up and just like watch, but it was difficult, like over Zoom, to really get like the in-person stuff is so much better. Like my growth there like was much easier and faster, that way. But the thing I noticed is a lot of these, like a place like Sterling Sound. So the reason this all happened too is because Randy Merrill, the engineer, when he went to school in Fredonia. Our advisor, Dave, taught him as well at Fredonia. So he knew Dave. Dave taught him. So when he needed another assistant, that's who he reached out to, Dave. So what I'm getting at too is trust. And this is like the number one thing I'd say, maybe at this level, but like definitely at the high level, it's like, it's trust. So like my first day in person, the fact that like I could just wipe the hard drives off anything or steal anything, or like, it's kind of like, I don't want to say that easy, but it's like they put trust in you right then and there. So it's so much that no wonder why like you're going to reach out to like someone you trust to like find someone, who can handle the job and that they trust, So there's like many aspects of that, of like, can they handle the job? Can they, are they trustworthy? So yeah, it's like there was just big shocks in that regard where it's like, whoa, like all these major artists are like I'm here, like I have access to this stuff, and like, you know.
It's crazy. So tell me about your first physical day in the studio then.
Yeah, first physical day. So like we have like a garage section. So I like pull around the building, like, you know, like call Randy, like tell him like I'm here. So like open up the gate. So like I like pull in, and like the only spot, there's like a dumpster like here, and then there's like a Porsche right there, and like this little thing for me to pull in. I'm like, he's like, yeah, just like pull in like right next to the Porsche. I'm just like, dude, I cannot hit this this car. Like that would, like if I hit this Porsche, like I'm just gonna back out and just go.
Just leave it.
Yeah, like I'm sorry guys. Like if I can't drive, I can't do this. So like, yeah, I'm just like so nervous, just like driving in. So yeah, I like pull into this parking spot, you know, get out, like they're all there. I think, you know, Randy and the assistant, like they show me around the tour. It's so cool too, because the place, so it's in Edgewater, New Jersey. It used to be in Chelsea Market in the city.
Oh, no way.
But they moved, yeah, because their lease was up. So yeah, they're in Edgewater now, and it's like the old mail room of Edgewater. So it's like an older brick building, but the inside is like super modern, super cool, like very like, I won't say like industrial, but very cool vibe. So like when I was in there, I was like, whoa, like it's just like cool place to work. It, you know, like my mind went to like almost like a little mini like Google or something, where it's like, oh, like I like this, you know, like it was just so like cool community, very small, just like all good stuff all around. And so, you know, show me around, and then finally took me to his studio. So like the thing with mastering studios is it's very different than a mixing studio.
They look crazy.
Mastering studios are like it's like a surgeon's room almost, you know. It's like it's so like pristine, and like the acoustics are unreal. Like it is ridiculously quiet. Where I like when I first started there was a bug in there, like a little fly, and like I hear it buzzing like around me, like perfectly. And I was like, whoa. So yeah, it was like things like that. I was just like, this is crazy, and like kind of weird for my ears too at first to get adjusted.
How's the place decorated? I know you talked about like it being modern and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, like I imagine like, you know, all the grades coming through the studio, like do they have like, you know, the classic like, you know, like gold and like records, like platinum records around?
We don't have those, but we just have the vinyl records up of like more of our current projects that we've done.
Sick.
But yeah, like we did have this was crazy too, because like when I first started, we had a couple people come, which is like also surreal for me. We did the new Coldplay record, and Coldplay came into the studio.
That's sick.
Yeah. So like the first day, this guy Max Martin comes in, who's like the producer. And Max Martin, if you don't know, he's produced like from Britney Spears up like that genre of stuff to like Ariana, Katy Perry. Like he's everywhere. He's like a god, you know, in the producer world. So I got to meet him, and it was just like amazing, you know, just being able to listen to him. And yeah, so you know, he came in the one day, and then I think next week Coldplay came in, you know, and you're just like, oh my God, like kind of like what you said before about like Victor Wooten, you know, right? Like just chilling there. It's like, whoa, like you're so behind the scenes right now, just like being cool, like working on music, like, you know, it's a totally different vibe. Like you're not going to be that kid just like sign my shirt or like, you know, like,
you know, I think that's a perfect mini segue, you know, because I want to continue talking about this whole experience at Sterling. But being a sound engineer and having to not, I think what taught me most about one of the things like you learn is like you hear all these stories in the industry.
yeah,
I've met this person, I've met this, you know, we've heard a lot of great ones from the pianist at Willie P, the guy who runs the jazz program, for Bill Charlap, right? Charlap
right.
has some like wild stories too about like, you know, like Tony Bennett, like, you know, like making him a sandwich and stuff, you know,
right,
like coming in and you're wondering, you're like, oh my God, like this is great. It's just like making me a sandwich and stuff. And it's wild. But I think through most of these conversations you have with people, I mean, when you look at regular media, like, you know, everybody's always blowing up the crazy like superstar, the crazy, you know, artist, or the person who's just like, you know, like that does exist in the industry, but it's not as common as people think, you know. What you realize at the end of the day, past the music, you know, is that when you get in this intimate space, you see the human in them. You know, it's not like, it's cool, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, Coldplay?
Right.
Oh shit, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you know all their songs. They're amazing musicians. You look up to them.
Right.
But it's like to take it to another professional level, sit down and be like, nah, like you're not just Coldplay. You're some people, like humans making music, and we're trying to make it now at the highest level.
Right.
And to get to that highest level, you can't be like, oh, like let me, like, you know, get my t-shirt signed, or like, you know, let me get an autograph. If the opportunity comes up, though.
Right. Yeah, I think Randy said that too. Randy was funny because like Randy's a Coldplay fan. He's like, I have my vinyl record like in the thing just in case, like, you know, like whatever. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, like even what you just said, because I was in the kitchen and I was with the other assistant, and then who turns the corner and comes in the kitchen is Chris Martin, and he has like his dishes. He's like, "What can I put like my dishes?" You know, like super British, like whatever. Yeah. And like you know, like the other system, like, oh, like you can just put them here, like blah blah. He's like, no, like I'll do them, you know, like. So he starts like doing his own dishes, like in the sink, and I'm just like staring at him, just like, dude, this guy wrote like The Scientist, you know, like all his lyrics and stuff just like hit me. I'm like, oh my god, like just like that person's mind, you know, and like that human aspect. I'm like, oh my god, like I wasn't really say starstruck and like, oh my god, like this person, but it was just like I'm fascinated with your mind and like. Just how you came up with this and your creativity and just being here present and like, you know, I don't know. It's like so weird.
Yeah. And it must even get weirder. Cause I mean, you're still not necessarily like in the beginning parts of your journey. I mean, like how long have you been working there now? Has to be like a couple years now, right?
Like a year. Yeah. Over a year.
Yeah.
Like a year and a few months. So.
Yeah, I mean, like you're probably gonna get introduced to so many other like cool people and stuff, and you know, I think we could pop in at names at any time, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it is what it is on that sense. But like now working with Randy, you know, talk to me about like how different it's become. Because for the people who are listening, you have like, you know, the recording engineer, which could also be the mixing engineer, the recording engineer, the mixing engineer, and you have the mastering engineer. And actually, Matt, I'll kind of let you take the reins on this. Can you explain the differences between like each of those three and what their jobs entail?
Yeah. So recording, obviously, you're dealing with the musicians in person firsthand, and you're getting the content. So all the content is created in that step. And then once that's established, it is then sent to the mixing engineer. These are all separate people. So then that creation, you know, it's usually edited to at this level, you know, like that setup is then sent to the mixing engineer. And then the mixing engineer had someone like, you know, Kyle, who you had on, right? He then takes those individual tracks and creates a balance and sees the vibe of the recording and creates that. So, you know, he puts in perspective all that, the imaging, the effects, you know, reverb, delay, like, you know, production stuff could happen there too. And then once that's established, that's then sent to the mastering engineer. And this is the final step in the creative process. So at mastering, we only get the 2-track. So it's only, you know, at mixing, you get like 100 tracks, you know, it could be blah, blah, blah. Mastering, you get like 1 track, a stereo file. And from there, your job is you have to make this, like this goes out right after this step. So it goes out to distribution, and your job is to basically check it. So you have to make sure it translates to the different formats, you know, make sure it's going to sound good in your car and your AirPods or, you know, whatever. And it's a lot of pushing back on the mix. And you have to understand the mix. So a good mastering engineer will not necessarily put their thumbprint on the mix. They try to change it to something it isn't. They're trying to take the emotion and the vibe of the song and just enhance it if they can. If they can make that enhancement, of that song 10% better, great. That's it. So it's really a second set of ears for the mixer to check the song, and it's a reassurance on many levels, So, and then in a grand scheme, when you do an album, it's to balance the whole album out collectively and like listen to it through. It's almost like you're the first listener, of the project, like of how the listeners are going to hear it. So be the first listener and make any adjustments you need to before it actually goes out to the public.
Sick. I love the way you put that, man. I feel like I'm learning right now. No, this is great. This is great. So what exactly now? So mastering is like, it's funny. I actually like the way like the title is, because it's like, you're a mastering engineer, but you're also like a master engineer. Like, like you're in the process of becoming one and all that. And it's, what exactly would you say, is the tools utilized in mastering? Because, obviously like you might be doing a little bit of EQ compression, but like, what have you seen so far that's like goes even deeper to compared to what you knew before?
Yeah, so it's interesting because what I knew before would be more thumbprinty to what I said of like, but it's also because a lot of the projects I know work at like, this level coming out of college or whatnot, like they're not at the professional level. So it's like you want to do a lot more to try to make it sound like it's at that level. But what I learned at Sterling is to not be thumbprinty with it. Like some of these records we get, like these final mixes, they'll sound like masters, which is crazy. It's like, because what's like the whole like myth or like, common aspect people think of mastering is make it loud, right? That's like the cliche, like, oh, like mastering just makes it louder. It's like, no, like mastering just pushes back on the mix. And it's like, the cool thing about it is sometimes, like, it doesn't happen all the time, but like what I learned, and this happens where, like you get a mix and you try to make it better, right? Like you try to add an EQ, you try to blah, 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 and you keep comparing it to what you received, and what you received keeps winning out, keeps getting better. It keeps like, you cannot improve this song. And then at that point, the song's good as is. So it's like the master engineer, it's like, oh, like, they didn't do anything. It's like, no, they did. Like they tried to make it better and couldn't. And that's it. Like they have the trust basically for like, say the mixer in this case to be like, hey, you nailed it. Like it doesn't happen often, but like there are times like that where it's like, wow, like what you sent me is perfect. Like I cannot make it better, So it is a lot of that. There's a lot of trust in that aspect, and knowing like the grand scheme of audio and music, to know when to affect something and change it and when to just let it be.
For sure. I think that's it's funny because it makes sense, but I feel like to a lot of other people, and even a part of me still doesn't want to believe that it makes sense.
Yeah.
And then maybe you had a similar reaction, right? Mm-hmm. Because like I said, you learn these tricks of the trade like at such a basic level, like with the fake turning knob, kind of deal, and sometimes people need to get out of their own heads, right? And what's hard is that as a mastering engineer, you need to be able to get out of your own head.
Yeah.
And also understand like, okay, like, this isn't just like, what I want, it's bigger picture.
Right. Yeah. It's so much psychology, man.
And I think it's funny. You there's mixes that you send back, they're just like not touched, right?
Yeah.
Like, and they just have perfect. Do the other people like ever like, do they ever understand, or like have you ever gotten any clapback for like, doing something like that?
No, but this is something funny. Just that concept of like people not knowing. Mm-hmm. So what can happen sometimes, this doesn't happen often, but it can, is you're sent a mix, you don't do anything to it, and you send it back to like them, like the artist, the mixer, label, and they're like, we hate it. What? Like, I didn't do anything to it. They hate it, you know? So that's the psychology aspect right there of like, I didn't touch this audio and you don't like it. So that means they got to go back to the mix, you know, and it's a problem in the mix because sometimes these artists or projects or something, they don't listen to like the full picture of the mix at that time, like before it gets mastered. So it's like they didn't realize there was an issue with it. So mastering is really like just it's like a stop in the road. It's like a checkpoint, you know, before this goes out into the world. Like, hey, we're at this checkpoint, you know, do we need to like fix this car up at all before like it goes through into the world, or like is it good as is type deal, you know?
So has there ever been like, you know, like you said, you send something back to the label, they don't like it. So like, have you ever had to receive a mix after it's gone through that process?
Yeah, that'll happen. That can happen a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are projects, you know, you can have like, you know, like 10 mix revisions or stuff, you know, get sent to you. So yeah, it depends.
What's it like listening to some of the top tracks like in the world, right?
Yeah.
And seeing them before they go out to the world. Like, what are some of like the most common mistakes, or like, let's say mistakes, right? That you've heard and that you see them like go back and revise.
Yeah, it's so small. Like it's so small. You know, it's like there's really not much, I'd say, at this level. Like the crazy thing too about like a lot of these artists and projects is their teams are phenomenal from the ground up. So when they get to mastering, there's usually like little to nothing to do, you know, like versus like doing something out of college where like, oh, like the recording I did like is trash. Like I need to do a lot more work in the mixing process. Like for these bigger artists, they are so good at every stage of the creative process that when it gets to mastering, it's like mastering shouldn't be like changing this crazy, you know, it shouldn't be like turning this project inside and out and making it something it isn't. Because it's just so well done all the way up through. So that's where it's like these micro moves and stuff. And, you know, like you really see how untrained your ears are when you get there, because, you know, I look at Randy and like his ears and what he can hear is surreal. Like you're scientifically just not supposed to be able to like hear some of the things he does, you know? So, you know, I think it's like a dB, like you're taught in school, right? Like 1 dB, like booster cut, right? Like that's what you're supposed to be able to hear. Like at like it's, you know, minimum, like that's it. You know, doing moves under that and like 0.1, like whatever, 0.2, like anything under a dB, like you're technically not supposed to hear. But especially up in like the studio there in that room, is it's so well acoustically treated. It's like you can hear some of these moves, and it's like these little moves add up to make a big difference. So, you know, sometimes, you know, you could do something small and like I may not hear it or whatever, but it's like you do that a few times, you know, with different plugins or different, you know, steps, like different limiters, you know, in the process, and you can kind of create something at the end of it. When you bypass it all, you're like, whoa, like it does make a difference. But it's so like, it's so crazy because I'd say most people wouldn't know, you know, like you're just passively listening in your car. It's like, if you like played the mix versus the master on like certain, you know, not every project obviously, but certain projects, it's like you may not know, but it's just because like this is like the highest level and they just want like the best of the best. So
yeah. I think it's crazy because especially in the learning environment that we were at in college, and I even think it's like, you know, when we show each other some things, you know, it's like I remember specifically like you bringing in some mixes and you giving me headphones and being like, yo, listen to this real quick. And then bypass. It's like, listen to that.
Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah.
as sound engineers, it's like what we need to do. And it's crazy how
Right.
like certain things, will bother us, day to day. Like your ears just get so sensitive to everything,
Right.
you just become a very good listener. Like even like, I'm still driving the Hoopty Honda, right? And it vibrates a lot.
Yeah.
And it disturbs the crap out of me because I'm just like, Jesus, like I can't listen to a mix in my car while I'm driving. I have to park or something, so it stops vibrating. Little things in the house, like if I hear like a whirring or something, or even like sometimes my friend's fiance, she got me some gifts for the studio, right? When we opened up. And I love her to death, and she got me this clock, and it's the best thing ever, right? It's such a cute clock and everything.
Right.
But sometimes if I'm just focused,
Yeah.
I can hear the,
Yeah.
and it's just like, damn, shut up.
Crazy. Well,
like-
dude, that's like what happens with, like, I try to meditate often, and we did this with Dave with the audio journals, which like everyone thought was stupid.
Those were incredible.
Dude, that
Incredible.
that actually helped me so much. And even what I'm gonna say about like meditating, because it brought such present moment, it just brought the present moment to you, and to listen and to just be aware, because there's so much going on around you. And like now, like when I meditate, I basically count. Like I can easily count 10 things I'm hearing. And it's like, man, if I was to do that now, like just not in the present moment, just thinking, it's like maybe I'll think of like 2 things. I'll hear like the AC running and like, I don't know, someone walking. And it's like, that's it. But it's like, man, like when you like really sit down and like immerse yourself, it's like everything comes through. So it's kind of that thought process though in mastering too, of like those rooms are so clean, like clinical type stuff where it's like you can just hear everything that's being presented to you. So it's so fascinating too, because in those rooms there's no reflections really. So when music's played, you hear it come towards you, and when you press pause, you hear it almost get sucked back into the speakers. It's really crazy. Like you don't hear anything else in the room. Like, and sometimes like you don't know what it is until you experience that. So like even listening, say like in a mixing studio, it'll be more lively than like this mastering studio. Like this mastering studio is dead, like dead audio. So it really lets you judge though what is being presented to you through the speakers,
Matt, we're coming pretty close to the end of the podcast.
Wow.
I tried to take it as long as I could.
That's all good.
I still have 3 more questions for you, though.
3 more
I
questions.
got 3 more questions for you.
Oh man, I gotta pee soon.
And you,
I do.
all right. We'll try to speed through these.
Okay.
The first one
Yes.
being, what's the difference between having artists who come to the mastering studio versus artists who come to the mastering studio and listen to the mix versus the vibe of having artists in the studio when you're recording or even like mixing regularly?
Yeah, it's very different. So at this stage, you don't know if they're at like the hypercritical level of listening that you are. There are a lot of musicians out there too that, whether they, their ears are just blown or whatnot, it's like, yeah, they're a great songwriter, they're a great musician, but, they might not be able to hear some of these moves you do. So there's an aspect of establishing trust with them. And once that's established, you can do a move and they'll be like, I can't hear it, but sounds good. Like, I trust you. If you think it sounds better, leave it at that. So there definitely are those moments. And then I think the grand scheme of it, of once you're finished with that mastering session and, you kind of listen to the original thing that you guys came in with and then listen to it, with all the processing you did, that's where they'll usually really hear it. Hence, the micro moves versus doing the big macro show, basically bypassing everything and then putting it back on. But yeah, you know, it's a different mindset. You know, one's a little bit more creative, and the other one's, you know, in mastering is just like, it is creative, but you know, this is how the listener is going to hear it. Make sure this is how you want it.
Absolutely sick, dude. I think that's great. It's great stuff. I'm learning so much, dude. I'm sorry. I feel like a little like giddy student here.
It's okay.
The second question I have is, what so far is the biggest things that you have learned from working at Sterling?
That's a good question. Yeah, the biggest thing, I'd say personally, to be a sponge. You know, you're kind of the dumbest guy in the room, so just listen. You know, they know so much. You're going to learn so much from just being in that environment. So that's a personal, you know, learning experience. And then I'd say more technically on mastering, it would be to not put your thumbprint on the audio. Understand what's being presented to you, and then see if you can enhance that. And if you can't, reassure that this is the best it could be.
Sick.
Sick. Sick, bro. Nice.
All right, Matt. My last question for you.
Yeah.
Because I want to expand on the questions, but I know if I talk, bro, I'm going to go forever.
No, it's all good. I really got to pee.
All right. My last question for you before we close out the podcast.
Uh-huh.
Very commonly between a lot of artists, musicians, anybody who's doing their passions, they always, you explained before, there were some times where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to get through this. I don't know if this is for me. And it's always in those moments that I feel like help build us into stronger and more headstrong into what we want to do. So if you could look back at the worst moment you've had, or the most serious moment where you looked at yourself and you're like, I'm not sure this is for me. If you go back and talk to you at that point, what advice would you give to yourself?
Take the small steps. Don't worry about the big picture. It's like the big picture will come. You know, like you feel it inside you first and foremost that this is for you. Stick with it. But when you stare at the big picture, that's when you get anxiety. That's when like the monster comes out and it's like all those fleeting thoughts come in. But when you stay present in the moment and take the small steps and learn, that's it. Like kind of keep your head down, you know, and just keep going. You know, don't second guess, you know, or if you do second guess, like don't think too much of it. I think we put so much strain on ourselves of, you know, like, oh, I'm not where I want to be, or I'm not this yet. Or it's like, take a moment, take a breath and enjoy the present. Don't just, you know, be worried about getting there, because what happens is you get there and then you hate it. You know, it's like you're never going to escape problems. So just learn how to deal with them in the best way possible for yourself and keep moving. That's it.
Matt,
that's it.
Thank you for coming on the podcast, bro. It means the
you,
world
bro.
to me. Learned so much. Dude, let the people know where they could find you online if they want to support.
God, I'm so bad at social media because I'm always doing shit. Yeah, I don't know. What is it? It's like,
do you have a website? Do you have a website now?
Yeah, I have a website.
You can shout out the website.
It's just Matt Filipek. You know, yeah, it's just mattfilipek.com. That's it. Nothing crazy.
I'll have his socials all, like, you know, if you want to give this man a follow. He's a young legend, young Matt, young legend. Yeah, dude, I appreciate you to the earth and back, bro.
Man.
Hopefully we'll have you back on at some point, and we get to learn more about your journey and
love it.
Go into the technicals and everything.
That's right.
All right, guys, y'all already know the business. Ayoo Chill Podcast, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Anywhere you find your podcast, you can find me. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, because we're trying to get the subscribers up there. And yeah, guys, Matt, let's get the fuck out of here, man.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. Dude, I gotta pee.
Go pee. Oh my God.